Welcome to OkState Daily. Casey Porter here. So glad that you decided to tune in. Fans, the baseball team continues to grind on. They are now 3-3 on the season. Played really well at home. Hey, home sweet home. We talked about this team needed to get back home and then start building their season and start growing. Now back on the road, a very tough game tonight against Abilene Christian. And then just a murderer's row this weekend. Again, starting Friday night against Tennessee. Gabe Davis is going to get the ball for OSU. Super excited about that. Gabe Davis the other day, matter of fact, let me get his video up on the board right now. Let me switch this over, and then we can take a look at Gabe Davis, and we can get on with our show here. So Gabe Davis the other day against UT Arlington, it was a 19-4 game, so you might say, why did Gabe Davis come in and close that game? Well, it's simple. It's because that was his bullpen day. So in between starts, each starter has what's called a bullpen day where you throw however many pitches. Well, instead of throwing a bullpen, Coach Holliday decided to have Gabe Davis throw his bullpen in the game for one inning, and he came out and he looked very, very, very good against UT Arlington. So the offense, I've mentioned a couple of times, I think this offense has a chance to be very explosive. And Garrett Scholl, how about this young man? Had 3 hits on, the Monday night game against UTA. He had the big hit up against the wall. He is very, very fast. Him and Brock Thompson have just treasure troves of talent for the young guys. Switch hitter, you can see him run. I really enjoyed watching him run in that that triple that he had. Look at, there's one to right field. Then he had 2 hits to basically dead center. Young man, he played for Brad Gore at Enid, who is in the Oklahoma State Hall of Fame. So obviously Garrett Scholl is, with guys like him and Brock Thompson, this young man right here, what happens is the more you get to see him, every single day that you get to see him, here's Brock Thompson here. They do something new every day that makes you go, oh, yeah, well, that's what the scouts see right there. I'm just telling you, Brock Thompson, by the way, Oklahoma State was trailing 3-0, and they needed a spark. And Brock Thompson, how about a true freshman going opposite field right there? So, boy, that is a very impressive at bat for Brock Thompson, and in a situation to where the Oklahoma State Cowboys really, really, really needed a spark, and they got it, right? So another thing that I would like to mention about the way OSU, now you're not going to make too much, just like I didn't want to make too much out of the weekend when Oklahoma State they went 1-3 at Globe Life, right? But I wanted to mention Aiden Miola, okay, and the way Oklahoma State played. So when they beat UT Arlington, whatever, it was 10 to whatever, okay, 9 of the 10 runs had been scored with 2 outs. Look on the scoreboard there, 2 outs there. So whenever you face Nolan Schubert, who, by the way, let me get to Nolan Schubert here in just a second. Nolan Schubert, very impressive, hitting the ball up the middle right there. See that? This is a guy that can hit the ball to the moon. This is a guy who the pros are going to tell to get the ball in the air, because if you have 115-mile-an-hour exit velocities like he can do, 115, 116, and you hit the ball in the air, guess where that ball is going? That ball is going over the fence. So I just guarantee you that's what professionals are going to tell Nolan Schubert. It's probably what they've already told him. But the fact that he's able to see their first and third, he was just trying to have a good at-bat for his team. He is putting team at-bats way ahead of trying to impress scouts and hitting the ball in the air, which means that he's less feast or famine. Okay, his bat-to-ball skills are going to be better at that point, and he's hitting well over 400 because of it. After a slow start, Aiden Miola is hitting well over 300. And then another guy that very impressed, I'll just say this, when Jason Jones hits the ball the other way, pow, his power is just absolutely different. This one didn't go over the yard, but it was over the fence. That opposite field right there is an absolute rod, though, from Jason Jones. He plays with great energy. Wow, he made a great play the other day, too. Now, watch this. Opposite field, pow. We also saw the home run at Globe Life where he just hit a Pete Incaviglia type. Turned on one, so we know he has the power to the pull side. I think he's probably concentrated more on staying inside the ball, making his, see that there, we know he can do that. We know he can just absolute lasers whenever he turns on balls like that. But I think for consistency's sake, I think the fact that he's staying inside the ball. Now see how he's inside that ball, even though he's pulling it, and he's letting that ball get very deep, and his movements are very simple, but very, very explosive. So he is a guy that, kind of like the young guys. I mean, his talent he really just kind of makes your eyeballs pop. And then here's a guy that Oklahoma State really, really, really needs to continue to have at bats that he has put together this year, and that is Colin Briggerman. He's come up with some huge at bats. What Briggerman does is he gives protection for Jason Jones. He gives protection for Nolan Schubert. And so if you go through, if you make a mistake to Schubert, or if you make a mistake to Jones or Miola, look at that opposite field home run. Not trying to do too much. See, kind of like the Nolan Schubert thing that we were talking about. No 17 strikeouts. Just shorten up. Think contact. Just think line drive. I'm not asking you to try to dribble a ball to the second baseman. Nobody wants that. That's an out at this level, okay? I want you to still hit the ball hard, but just don't swing out of your shoes to the point to where you're minimizing your ability to put the ball in play. Just think about trying to put the ball in play in a line drive fashion. Just think about trying to hit line drives. If that line drive gets up in the air, see, that's a line drive. Line drive still, with all the modern day analytics, if you hit a line drive, those are still the best outcomes for any hitter. So if Colin Briggerman can continue to give Oklahoma State the production that he has given them, then this will be an offense alongside Ian Doherty. If Ian Doherty and Colin Briggerman continue to play offense the way they have, this will be an offense that's long. It'll be a lineup that lengthens, meaning we know that Schubert and Jones and Miola and those guys can do damage up in the middle of the lineup, but hey, can they produce runs all the way through their lineup and be a lineup that lengthens in terms of being a threat at every position in the lineup? Ian Doherty is off to just simply a fantastic start in 2025. Now, I know a lot of people have questions about Bo Sylvester and Charlie Carter. There is no injury to Sylvester. He has overcome that. He is just fine. This is a playing time issue that the coaches have chosen Ian Doherty over the other two options. Charlie Carter, a defensive first guy. Bo Sylvester, very talented sophomore out of Hawaii. But Ian Doherty, to be honest with you, has just taken the bull by the chains and by the horns and just done a really good job and ran with the position so far. And then how about Braden Smith? I love this guy. This absolute perfect mentality for a leadoff hitter. He's feisty. He thinks up the middle. He thinks line drive. And then every once in a while, like we saw him in game one against UTA that you're getting ready to see here in a minute, if everything goes right, he can do, and I love this mentality, young man out of Omaha. He has a leadoff hitter's mentality like that. Leg that out, get you a double, young man, and just run to second base. But when things go right, even as he thinks like a leadoff hitter, and he thinks up the middle, he thinks line drive, he's feisty. But when things go right, he can do that. 22 home runs at Iowa Western. This is a young man that can do a little bit of everything for this club. And then we also got to see Drew Culberson at shortstop, kind of this year's version of Lane Forsythe, a guy that's a glove first guy, although Lane Forsythe had a very good year with the stick last year. But we got to see Drew Culberson. If Oklahoma State feels like they need the defense at shortstop, then they could always turn to Drew Culberson. But I really like this young man, Braden Smith. In terms of the pitching, we saw Harrison Bodendorf get a start. Now, nothing has been spectacular about him or Hunter Watkins, who are the 2 and 3 starters. They both gave up 3 runs in the first inning that they pitched. But I'll say this about them. This is going to be an offense that's good enough to where if you can at least get 5 innings. See, so the bullpen arms are very talented when you're talking about Stormy Rhodes and Noah Weck and Ethan Lund, but they're young, right? And then Ryan Ure, as much talent and as much potential as he has, It's still in the potential category. He has not proven to be consistent. Drew Blake hasn't taken that next step to be that high leverage guy that you feel like you can just throw out there and be a Tommy Molsky or Robert Kranz, and it's just an automatic 3 outs. Drew has the potential to do that, but he hasn't done it consistently yet. So it's going to be very important, even on days to where the starters give up some runs, that they grind it and they continue to work it, and they find some length. So the one thing I will say about Bodendorf and Watkins, their performances weren't perfect. Bodendorf, I've reached out to get his exact mix, have not been able to nail that down. And then Watkins is about 93 on the gun. I think that's where I saw him top. But he had that big 12-6 curveball that I really like. That one there. That's a really nice pitch. Is that they grinded through and they got 5 innings. So I'll say this. If Watkins and Bodendorf, every performance out, can go 5 innings and give up 3 runs, I'll take that every day and twice on Sundays. And I'll take the offense of Nolan Schubert and Jason Jones and Braden Smith and Garrett Scholl and Avery Ortiz and Ian Doherty and Aiden Miola and all these guys. I'll take the offense for the over. If let's say that they go 5 innings and they give up 3 runs. Let's say the bullpen has an average day and gives up 2 runs in the last 4 innings. That's a 5-run outing. Oklahoma State's offense should be able to cover 5 runs against any pitching staff in the United States. Now, that's not going to happen every day. I'm saying just playing the odds from just a day-to-day perspective. So what I took out of Bodendorf and Watkins was the fact that they grinded long enough to give some length, of which Oklahoma State absolutely needs. Now, how about this young man? This might be your number 2 starter right here, Sean Youngerman. What you need to know about him, he's 96, but it's the carry. It's the backspin he gets on the ball. So there are some, like right there, see that's 96, but to the hitter it looks way faster than that. The effective velocity is much higher than the actual velocity because he puts so much backspin on the ball. And the more backspin you put on the ball, the less it slows down as it gets to home plate. So the radar guns back when I was a kid, they measured the ball as it crossed home plate, correct? So the ball slows down the closer it gets, the further away it is from the pitcher. So the radar guns now are measuring the highest velocity at any time the ball's in the air, which is right out of the hand. So if you're a pitcher that doesn't put backspin on the ball, it might, like a bruised arc Gratterall, it might come out of your hand 100 miles an hour, especially if you don't have a long extension, meaning you're not striding out long to home plate. Then if your ball is decelerating to home plate, yes, it started out 100, but by the time it got to home plate, it's 89 miles an hour. And that's why a guy like Bruised Arc Gratterall can throw 100, and people can't figure out why major league hitters just barrel up his fastball all the time, because it decelerates. It does. I mean, it's like a spin rate of like 2,100, right? That's the opposite of Sean Youngerman. Sean Youngerman has backspin on the ball, which means his ball carries and it decelerates less coming to home plate and gives a higher effective velocity than most other pitchers give. So I am really, really high on Sean Youngerman. I think this guy has a wonderful future. I think he's going to throw some really high leverage outings and innings for Oklahoma State. And then this young man, how about the fiery competitiveness? Hey, Noah Weck, nobody has had worse luck than Noah Weck. Matter of fact, he's given up 10 runs, 9 of them have been unearned. As a true freshman, that could break a lot of guys, right? Not Noah Weck. Noah Weck has continued to grind. He's continued to have that fiery, competitive attitude. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it. He threw 2 innings the other day. His first inning was tough, man. I mean, his fastball was kind of all over the place. He could not locate his slider. Actually, he has a cutter and a curveball. But I was super proud. And then he got really just fiery and pissed and competitive. So he's a fiery competitor. As Chief said, kind of has some Brian Holiday in him. That bulldog mentality, fiery competitiveness, that pitch right there, the cutter. I was very proud of him. There's another cutter too. Because in the second inning of work, after he got kind of fiery and competitive in his first inning, he settled down and started landing the cutter. So his fastball has a little bit of a right turn to it. You can see right there. See how that ball moved in on the righty? Let me back that up, and you can watch this ball tail just a little bit. Watch how this tails into a right-hander. See how that's coming back to the right? So if he can make a hitter honor a left turn, that's his curveball there. See, so he has that smaller gyro-shaped cutter that he can throw for consistent strikes whenever he's throwing well. That cutter, right, that's his cutter there. And then the last pitch you're going to see right here, if I fast forward it to the right spot, this is his bigger one. No, that's his fastball that tails in on a righty. See how it got in on the hands? That's because it's tailing in. There's the curveball. So he has a smaller cutter that's kind of a gyro bullet shape that's meant to be for a strike that he can just kind of make the hitter honor a left turn with. Then he has the curveball that has quite a bit more depth to it. That is a lot of fun to watch him execute. And so whenever he's able to execute those two pitches, the cutter and the curveball, Noah Weck takes really a different level. So all in all, this is a team that I think has a chance to be explosive offensively. And then if Ian Doherty and Colin Briggaman, and then your young guys like Brock Thompson and Garrett Scholl, then your new guy Braden Smith, if all those guys continue to play good offense, you still have Avery Ortiz, where you can either put him at the top of the lineup or in the bottom somewhere. This is a lineup that could be very lengthy, meaning you can score at every position of lineup, plus it could be explosive. I like the potential of this offense. We'll see how it goes this weekend, starting with Tennessee. Super fired up to see Gabe Davis take the ball against the Volunteers. The pitching staff, we'll see. I mean, Gabe Davis, first of all, has to be a number one starter. And then Hunter Watkins and Bodendorf, they need to go 5 every time. We'll see what we have with them. Hopefully you have another Sam Garcia and a Brian Holiday. That's your hopes. Of course, Watkins being from Grand Canyon, he's thrown against really good pitchers. So is Bodendorf being from Hawaii. And then they need to give length long enough to allow your young relievers, your young bullpen arms to develop, to mature, where you can actually rely on them in the high leverage. Then, as we said, Drew Blake and Ryan Ure need to be good, and we'll see what the coaches do with Sean Youngerman, but he definitely looks like a closer at this point. But he might end up being so good that the Cowboys have to move him into a starting role. So we'll see what they do there. So, hey, I hope you enjoyed our coverage of Cowboy baseball today. Another big game tonight against Abilene Christian. Rex and Chief will be on the call. And then the huge weekend this weekend in Houston. Friday night, the Cowboys Friday night in the big town will be taking on the Tennessee Volunteers. Gabe Davis to the bump. Can't wait. Hey, thank you for tuning in to OkState Daily. I'm Casey Porter. Go Pokes.